time for the Daily Planet podcast show. So sit back, relax, and give us a go. Scott and Matt and maybe a guest, undertaking an epic pod quest. We're gonna ramble on about movies and books and television and directors and film festivals and this really long list of stuff that I know nothing about, but they gave it to me and they really wanted me to read through it. And that's all I can really say about it, but it's gonna be great. Okay, start the show.
Hello, and welcome to the Daily Planet Podcast, your weekly podcast for all things movies, TV, books, and anything else we feel like talking about. My name is Scott Daly, and I'm your host, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-hosts, because there's two of them once again. First, we have Michael Grubb.
Oh, golly, sure is swell to be here.
Oh, boy. Talking like Jake Gyllenhaal in the movie we're talking about today.
Oh, gee. Wow, that was a swell movie.
All right. We also have Matt Freeman. Matt, how's it going?
Hey, everybody. Doing well. Excited to talk about a movie.
We are talking about a movie once again. Here's what we're going to do this week. First, we're going to cover some news. Then we're going to talk about 2007's The Zodiac. Or I think it's just Zodiac. It's just Zodiac.
It's just Zodiac.
David Fincher's movie about the serial killer from the 1960s. Which, can you believe it, is 10 years old. I can't, that's, wow.
Nope.
10 years old.
That can't be right.
The reason we're doing this is because David Fincher has a new television show on Netflix that came out this weekend that I don't see very many people talking about because Netflix just dumps things on their platform and never advertises them or draws attention to them or does anything that you think a TV producing company would do.
Yeah, I know, really. They should talk about it because it's excellent. And the people who are involved are excellent. And how come I never heard about this till you told me about it?
Yeah, that's like, it's insane. So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so I actually have seen ads for this on YouTube. On YouTube, like, you know, interstitial ads.
Yeah, I have ad block. So.
Oh, well,
well, there you go.
Well,
I just expect them to be able to reach me with information that I want
yeah.
to hear about.
Maybe we're not being fair to Netflix. Because actually I had, on Michael, you and I Netflix podcast from before, I had people very specifically say they saw ads for the movies that we were complaining about there being no ads. So maybe it's our fault.
I have ad block, though. I mean, what year is this?
I don't have ad block because I like to support the large corporations that make our lives so wonderful.
I have ad block, but I have it turned off for certain websites that I enjoy. YouTube is not one of them.
Very responsible. But the money goes to the creators, not, well, some of it goes to YouTube.
It depends on the video. Yeah.
It's just so dang annoying. Like 15 seconds of ads. Come on.
Right? Yeah, but we're kind of going off topic here, but I do think a show as big as this, a director as big as this, a creative team as big as this, some of the actors and people involved are huge. And I think more than just throwing some ads onto YouTube videos that no one actually pays attention to would be warranted. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't feel like Netflix doesn't tell me. Like, sometimes I get push notifications about new things on Netflix. Like, Netflix doesn't even tell me. Like, it's just like someone. Like, so anyway, that's our job now. We're going to tell you about Mindhunter.
There's no feature tab on Netflix. Like, I saw when I logged on to Netflix that Mindhunter was like the big thing at the top, you know, on the scroll thingy of new thingies.
Yeah.
So it told when it came out, but I would actually like to request from Netflix that you give me an ad.
Yeah.
A little ad bar, not before shows, because that would be really annoying, but just like on the front page, like coming soon or something would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or for a small fee, your friendly neighborhood podcaster could announce all these things.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Mm.
Netflix, it's a Daily Planet Films. That's DALY at gmail.com.
I tried to do an ad for you.
I appreciate that. You didn't do
it.
But here's the problem is we can't do a full podcast on Mindhunter because Michael and I have only seen a couple episodes and Matt hasn't seen any of it. So instead, we wanted to talk about another David Fincher serial killer movie, Zodiac.
This is what I thought Scott was talking about when he's like, hey, have you seen that David Fincher serial killer thing? And I was like, oh, Zodiac? And he's like, no, the other one.
The new one.
Yeah. So instead of watching all of that, we watched Zodiac.
Yeah. But we're going to definitely watch all that as well. And then we're going to get into what we've been watching at the end, and then we're going to call it a week. So let's do it. Let's jump into this thing. Let's talk about some news. Guys, did you hear that there's a new Star Wars trailer? Did you hear about that?
Sure. I
heard about this.
Heard about
Watched it. Watched the trailer, yeah.
So, Matt, what'd you think of that new trailer?
I mean, had some things that's definitely trying to make you think are going to happen. Yeah.
I think Star Wars should stop making movies and just make trailers.
It was a good trailer. I think with every single one of these Star Wars movies, I think they've realized that people are going to see this movie no matter what. So the trailer serves as less of a let's tell you about the movie and more of a this is the day the movie comes out.
Get pumped for the movie. Rather.
Yeah. Because none of these trailers talk about what the film's going to be about at all.
They hinted all of this like edgy stuff, like, oh, maybe Rey goes to the dark side, but like you kind of know they're not going to do it because they've hinted at interesting things in previous movies, but it's always been really uninteresting.
Yeah,
and safe. So we'll see if they prove me wrong this time.
Yeah, we here at the Daily Planet have a fairly negative opinion on Disney Star Wars, so I understand people excited for this movie. There was part of me that even got a little excited watching some of the stuff, but it just seems like we're hitting the same kind of beats. Like the poetry joke that everyone makes about George Lucas and making these movies rhyme just continues to be true because it's like everything is playing off of something we already know. Everything. And it's
just reshuffling.
Right. I think we're going to get into that a little bit more in the what we've been watching section, though, right, Matt?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. Looking forward to that.
Is what that's called.
Thanks, Michael.
No problem.
All right. Moving on from that, in Harvey Weinstein scandal news, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences officially kicked him out. He's no longer a member of the Academy. That seems like an obvious thing. You think that would just be something you do when someone's accused of being a serial sexual assaulter. But Bill Cosby, Mel Gibson, and child rapist Roman Polanski are all still members of the Academy. So this is kind of an unprecedented thing. They have not done this in the past. They have not weighed in on scandals around their members in this way before. So hopefully this, like the entire Weinstein scandal, is the start of a trend where we start exposing and punishing these people for the things that they do.
I'm pretty sure it will be in this day of like social media and like outrage, and people will now be pressuring them to be like, hey, what about all these people? And they'll be like, oh, you're right. We do need to get rid of these people.
Yeah, and we have seen that because, Ben Affleck came out and spoke against Harvey Weinstein, and then everyone was like, hey, Ben Affleck, remember when you assaulted me? And here's a video of it. And like,
oh no, did that happen?
It did. Yeah, it did. Oh. And I think this is good. I think it's good because we talked about this a lot last week, so I don't want to rehash a lot of this, but this seems to be we finally reached this breaking point where finally we're just like, enough is enough. And I think you're right. That's exactly what's happening with the Academy. Is this is so visible. If social media makes the conversation so heated that they finally are getting the pressure to act on things that they would have just shoved under the rug or looked the other way on, and they can't do that anymore.
Yeah, the model of this that I've heard that I like is that it's that social media creates common knowledge in the sense of like, now you know that they know that you know. Whereas before, and that means that they know that they're expected to be accountable for it. Whereas before there was the plausible deniability where everyone knew about it actually, but there wasn't the megaphone of social media to prove to everyone that everyone knows about it. Yeah, so you could just be like, man, why is no one doing anything about this? And they could safely continue to not do anything about it because there wasn't that, like you said, that social pressure caused by the consensus, essentially.
I want to bring up though, like a possible distinction between the Weinstein case and all of these other people. And that's that Harvey Weinstein like directly abused his power as like a producer in the industry. Whereas I don't know that much about the other cases, but I think Bill Cosby and Mel Gibson and Roman Polanski all had cases kind of like not related directly to their film careers. So
yeah,
Yeah,
they were leveraging their fame.
Yeah, they were,
but not their, not like you get this job if you
right.
apply.
Right.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
There is something a bit dangerous about just like jumping on the judgment train for people's like private issues, which are probably true in all three of those cases, but it's not like up to the academy to punish these people for stuff not related to the academy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair statement. The biggest thing I'm worried about with this whole thing is that, like, the Harvey Weinsteins of the world are the worst of the worst. They are, like, literal cases of rape and assault, and it's awful. But the industry is plagued with these, like, micro sexual harassment things that happen all the time. Like, Ben Affleck did not rape someone. Ben Affleck was drunk during an interview or grabbed someone's ass when he shouldn't have, or was really inappropriate with a female reporter, and these kind of things. Those are different things. And I worry that the people that commit those kind of things, which are still bad and still should be discouraged and still should be called out when they happen, they look at Weinstein and say, well, I'm not like that, so I'm a good person. And they continue to do these bad things that they're still doing, but they're not as bad as the rapist over there. And that is, I think, a cause for concern.
Yeah. Sorry, I was distracted reading about the Ben Affleck scandal.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like Ben Affleck was at least, maybe had a self-realization there. And,
I think so too. And of course, like the irony of this is his brother, Casey Affleck, is under several sexual assault allegations as well, and has been for years. So this is just like this whole thing is messy. There's so many people in powerful positions abusing it in these kind of just gross and disturbing ways. And I encourage these stories to come forward if it means that the people are finally feel like they're safe and they're able to come forward on this kind of stuff. Anyway. Yeah. That's that. So now in box office news, Happy Death Day wins the weekend with $26.5 million. This is the Groundhog Day as a slasher movie, which I heard was not terrible. I didn't see it, but I heard it was okay.
I don't remember this existing. This wasn't on our trailer list.
No. It was a very small movie. Cost $5 million to make, so opening at $26 million is pretty good. This is Blumhouse Productions, who also did Split and Get Out this year, which also were cheap movies that have opened huge and made a lot of money. So it's a really good year for them. 3 movies that have earned their keep and then some. So good job, Blumhouse.
This is really time to release movies too, because there's a lot of garbage coming out.
Yeah. Blade Runner, on the other hand, still not doing great. It's going to bring in about the same amount that Arrival brought in, which you would think is good because Arrival did pretty good. But Arrival cost $45 million and Blade Runner cost $170 million. So not great news.
Feeling pretty vindicated about my Blade Runner review.
I don't think the fact that people didn't see the movie means that you were right about Blade Runner.
Listen to me. I think they really kind of understand.
Yeah, I guess you won them over with your argument. Don't you feel good now?
I do.
The thing that you wonder when you see stuff like this, though, is like, Matt, you and I love this movie. We found this movie beautiful. I think you can see every cent of that $170 million in this movie. But why did they spend that much? Who thought that this movie would make enough money to justify that? Because even the original Blade Runner was a financial disaster, and it was still a very cult movie. It was film nerds loved this movie. Cinephiles love this movie. It was never a big mainstream type thing.
Yeah, I mean, like the target audience of a Blade Runner sequel is exactly the kind of people who would roll their eyes about the idea of a Blade Runner sequel. So
that's true too. Yeah.
I think they just kind of confused like brand recognition with something that people actually enjoyed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true because like you get like Harrison Ford's back. He's going to do this, and you get kind of confused. You get lumped into the Harrison Ford is back for Star Wars and the Harrison Ford is back for Indiana Jones stuff, and you realize, oh wait, this was his cult movie that only 20 people saw when it came out to theaters. Not the big, huge franchise spanning success story.
Yeah,
Right.
I just hope this doesn't reflect poorly on Villeneuve.
Oh,
And-
my does.
I don't think
Oh, yeah.
so.
Because I want him to keep making movies. I just want them to be like, okay, maybe on your next one we'll properly calibrate your budget to what we actually expect it to make.
Yeah, I don't think Villeneuve gets blamed for this at all. I think the studio gets blamed. I think the marketing of the movie gets blamed.
Is that wrong?
Huh?
Villeneuve, isn't it Villanueva?
No.
He's French, I think.
It's actually completely different than anything that I've actually. I think I heard him say it, and it was like, oh, no one's saying it right, but whatever. I'll just say Villeneuve.
I've been thinking about that since last week. I was like, how do you pronounce his name?
I mean, I know it's Denis, right? Like, it's definitely
Yeah.
Denis.
It is Denis.
We should probably look this up as members of the podcasting community that are talking about people.
There's, I'm sure.
No, it's hopeless. I'm not French. I can't say it.
Make another movie anyway.
He absolutely is. He's making Dune next.
It's making Dune.
Windrunner was so depressing. Dune, that's another movie that was terrible that people remember existing and then think for a second that they might have liked, but then remember that they didn't.
Yeah, but the movie doesn't matter. We're talking about the book.
Yeah,
But
the
are
book
they
is
it's
loved.
Sting back is the question.
What? Say again?
Are they going to get Sting back to reprise his role?
Oh, I hope so.
I don't think so,
With
but
Gordon?
they're in very early talks for Dune. I'm not sure if it's even going to happen. Maybe the Blade Runner lack of success will kind of scare them away from doing this, but
Yeah, to be honest, Dune feels very similar to Blade Runner to me.
well, I mean, it was a David Lynch movie. Wasn't great, but as Matt, I think, has said on this podcast many times, that the idea of adapting Dune is so daunting and insane that I don't know how anyone would actually do it.
Yeah.
Probably in a boring 3-hour kind of way.
Let's move on. I'm just going to get frustrated. I'm going to get sucked into an arguing about Blade Runner hole with you again, and I won't let you do it, Michael.
And-
I won't let you do it.
And Dune is so core to Matt's identity that it's really not a good place to go.
I did say the first thing I texted to Matt after I saw Blade Runner 2049 is, okay, we can be safe with Denis doing Dune now. And
Yeah.
I stand by that statement. If anyone can do it right, I think it's this guy.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about David Fincher, though,
All right.
and let's talk about Zodiac. So here's the thing. This is probably one of my favorite movies. I think this is Fincher's masterpiece, and I would probably put this in my top 10 of films of ever. I love this movie. I love everything about this movie. I love that this is such a non-traditional story that you would think would not work. I mean, the Zodiac is a serial killer case about a killer who only kills 5 people, 2 of them before the movie even starts. Basically, 25 minutes into the movie, he's done killing people, and then it's just a very detail-oriented investigation and path of frustration where nothing is resolved. There's no definitive ending to anything. Nobody gets what they want, and everyone just kind of ends kind of miserable. And it's wonderful. I love it so much. So I wanted to talk to you guys about how much I'm right about Zodiac. So let's start with you, Michael.
Okay.
Had you seen this film before you watched it in preparation for this podcast?
No, I'd heard of it, and I wanted to see it as soon as you told me that about David Fincher's serial killer thing, and I was like, oh yeah, Zodiac. I never saw that, but I love David Fincher, and I really liked Fight Club and The Social Network, and like all of his other movies, pretty much.
Seven, which is his other serial killer movie.
Yeah.
And he might be a serial killer. But yes, no, I hadn't seen it. I did like it, but I wouldn't say it was even in my top 5 David Fincher movies.
Oh wow. Okay. Matt, how about you?
Yeah, that's an interesting idea to rank it in terms of David Fincher movies. I don't think I could do that off the cuff, but yeah, I mean, this is a really unusual movie. It's one of those ones where, I'm much more likely to say that I'm in the mood to watch Fight Club than say I'm in the mood to watch Zodiac. But it's technically very overwhelmingly amazing in terms of obviously the direction, which is kind of why we're talking about it, I think, but also the performances. and just like the creepy David Fincher tone that he does so well, and it's got a lot. There's a lot to talk about. I think that's probably my favorite thing about it is there's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about. Yeah.
And I guess we should say before we go into this is going to be a full spoilers discussion. The movie's 10 years old. It's about a case that's almost 60 years old. So I think it's okay that we spoil some of this now. Spoilers, we don't know who the Zodiac is. we never find out who the Zodiac is because they never find out who the Zodiac is.
Yeah, but got a hunch it's that guy.
Yeah, but there's never any...
Yeah, you don't have evidence. We got a hunch.
Well, so that's a good question. Do you think the movie wants you to... Do you think the movie wants you to think that it's Lee, or do you think the movie just wants you to be satisfied that Jake Gyllenhaal thinks it's Lee and leave it at that?
I think the main conclusion of Jake Gyllenhaal's ability to put it behind him is that he's pretty sure it's this guy, and he goes and gets to look him in the eye, and he's like, yeah, it's this guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the movie, we're kind of starting at the end, but the end of the movie is one of the only survivors of the Zodiac attack, like pointing at Lee's picture on the lineup. Right. So the movie seems to conclude with and side with Graysmith that out of all the suspects, out of everything that Arthur Lee Allen is the most likely to be the Zodiac.
The movie does, but in real life, we all know that eyewitness accounts, especially like 30 years later, are probably not very
great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Plus, we all clearly know that Ted Cruz is the Zodiac killer, so I don't even know why we're talking
about Ted Cruz and not his father,
right? Anyway, so diving into this movie, like Robert Graysmith as Jake Gyllenhaal is the main character of the movie. The movie is very roughly based off the book that Graysmith wrote. And I think they took a lot of liberties with his character specifically, but I think the one thing that Fincher does in this movie very well is the detail of the actual Zodiac case itself, the details of the murders, the details of the investigation. Fincher seemed obsessive about, to a point where like you kind of see him enter the Graysmith character. Like he is as obsessed with the Zodiac case as Graysmith is, which I think is why the resolution of the film is we get to see Graysmith satisfied, because that to Fincher is the most important thing. Is this guy got to his level of satisfaction, he got to his point where he could put it behind him, and that in a meta kind of way that seems like Fincher got kind of obsessed and caught up in this thing, and then got the same level of closure by making this film.
Yeah. And they use that character device. Don't they use the character device where he's always solving puzzles?
Yeah.
And that's essentially the connection there is like you solve a puzzle and then you're done with it. And he has the kind of obsessive personality where he absolutely can't let go of the puzzle until he's satisfied that it's solved.
Yeah.
And that's, I like that. I mean, I sort of doubt that the actual person, Graysmith, has that puzzle thing exactly the way the character does, because it works too well as a character trait for a fictional character.
Yeah.
The cool thing I want to point out is this breaks my rule that you should never make movies based on true stories, but it works in this case because Fincher realized that this was like really interesting because it was constructed like an actual story in terms of its mystery and everything.
Yeah.
And it's not actually about like fantasizing who the character of the murderer is or who the character of the author was. He made it work as a story because he invented this version of Graysmith, who is the perfect character to have this arc, as Matt was just describing.
Yeah. Yeah. And Fincher really, like a lot of the negative reviews, such as there were about this movie, were about that this movie really isn't about anything. This movie's just the details and of this case. And Fincher's response is the story is the details. Like this is it. Like this obsessive need to solve this thing through the Graysmith character is the story. And that's what he latched on. And that's the movie he made. And guys, how fucking good is Jake Gyllenhaal in this role? Like he's amazing.
He's one of the most underrated actors, I think, ever since I saw him in Nightcrawler.
Yeah, he is. I have not seen him in a thing recently that I have not liked him in.
Yeah, well, I don't feel like he's cast as much as he deserves to. I haven't seen him in a lot of stuff recently.
He has that rare capacity to disappear, where, you know, some actors, they're always playing themselves and you're kind of okay with it because you kind of like their personality. But Gyllenhaal does a pretty, like, he has certain mannerisms and so forth, but he's really disappears into this role. And Nightcrawler is another one where you barely recognize him, actually.
Yeah, and back, if we think back to 2007, though, he was in the stage of his career where he's very much playing this like smaller, kind of mousy kind of guy that everyone kind of steps on and ignores. And he kind of transcends that throughout the movie. I think that's the coolest thing about his arc, is that he goes from this person that, like, he's just the cartoonist in the room that everyone's telling to leave and finish his stuff, to the person, the guy who is the only one that is able to put all this stuff together.
Right.
And I love that transformation. I think that the fact that Gyllenhaal can pull off both that mousy little character and this guy at the end who is smart and capable and like almost to a destructive level of obsessed is really cool.
Yeah. And one of the important things is like how likable he is and like how much you want him to succeed.
Yeah. Even as you're watching him like destroy his family and his marriage. Right. And the thing that, like, Fincher is so into the details. I mean, like, he gets into the details of the case, but the details of scenes, like the first scene we see Gyllenhaal is when he's brushing his teeth with his son. And then about halfway through the movie, we see Gyllenhaal like brushing his teeth alone. And that image alone is just like showing how like he's shifting from his importance. Like, he was the guy that was taking care of his kid. He was so into that. And that has abandoned him quickly because he's so obsessed with this thing.
Yeah. But the movie, like David Fincher does a good job of like making you kind of feel the same way. Like, the family is never really that important in the story, and his date with the girl just kind of like suddenly they're married, and you're like,
and they have two more kids. Yeah.
Kids now. But you don't really care about them. And in fact, like when they leave, I was like, oh, good. Now he can focus on this mystery.
Yeah. I think Fincher's doing that on purpose. Yeah. Because like you are along for that ride, and it's so much of it is from his perspective, but like not just his. I mean, we have Mark Ruffalo, who plays the detective in charge of investigating this. We have Robert Downey Jr., who's playing a reporter who's investigating this. And all these people are just like their lives are suffering because they can't figure this thing out. So you're there with them. You're in that point of view, and you're in that state of mind, and you're just like, who did it? Like, is it this guy? Is it that guy? And like the fact that we drop so many names and we have so many different pieces of evidence and so many clues, you as a viewer almost feel overwhelmed too, because there's so much being thrown at you. There's so much detail, and it's so hard to parse it all and to get through it all. And you understand why this was such a difficult case to solve.
Yeah. Speaking of like parsing things and kind of the order in which you're thinking things through, I kind of want to take that opportunity to bring up that one scene, Scott.
Oh, that one scene? You mean the greatest scene ever shot in the history of the film?
Are you talking about the one in the basement?
No, that's a very good
great
scene.
One too. Yeah.
I like
one of my favorite scenes, and we're going to link it in the show notes for those of you that haven't watched this movie in a while. But this is when the three detectives interview Arthur Lee Allen for the first time, played by John Carroll Lynch. And like Fincher, like we've talked about detail, one of Fincher's greatest skills is taking a conversation scene where normally you just set up one over the shoulder shot, another over the shoulder shot, and then a medium, and then you just cut back and forth between those three shots as you're having the conversation. And he takes that general thing and then turns it into this like masterwork of direction. Like, he directs the shit out of the scene.
Yeah, it's like a dance. It's like music. There's like a timing between the shots. There's you're led like spellbound through the course of this conversation. And it's almost like the shots are not only the acting, but the shots are also telling you kind of what you need to be feeling.
Yeah. And like you jump between point of view. So like for the shot starts, the scene starts very standardly with some over the shoulder shots. You have three detectives sitting in chairs. Arthur Lee Allen walks in, sits down. They start having a conversation. Then Allen says something that pivots to like, suddenly we're like, what? He's like, he mentions offhandedly, oh, the knives that they found in my car that had blood on them was from when I killed a chicken. And at that moment, we cut to a point of view shot where all three of the detectives are looking at camera, looking at you. So in that moment, you are Arthur Lee Allen, and these people are looking at you with confused, shocked, accusatory faces, and it's so off-putting and uncomfortable. It's so good. And then as Allen kind of like pivots and manipulates things back to his in control, we move out of that first person perspective and we move back to over the shoulder shots, and we see things kind of calm down again. But then the detectives force another thing. They mention the time when he threatened school children and how that links back to the Zodiac case. And then we jump into first person again, and we're in Lee Allen's head again as these detectives look at us accusatory. But then the scene ends when Lee takes control, and Lee says that line that's like, I'm not the Zodiac, and if I was, I certainly wouldn't tell you. And then we're in point of view of the detectives, because Lee Allen looks us right in the eyes, and John Carroll Lynch does this amazing performance where like your skin crawls when he looks at you and says that. And it's just, oh my God.
Which I think is great, because that actor is always just like a dopey schlub character. And this role, like I would have never thought that this would work for him, but it's amazing.
It really is.
Yeah. I like how you kind of pointed out how putting you in the different characters' position by making you look into the detective's eyes versus look into Lee's eyes serves that function. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and this view, I really paid attention to the sound of the scene, which is very subtle, but like the way the chairs squeak as the characters lean back or shift their weight in them, the ambient noise because they're in a factory, and like right when we go to the first person perspective, some whistling in the background picks up, and it's like this casual whistling, and I think that just increases the creepiness factor even more, that you're just like you're someone staring into your eyes, questioning you, and you're hearing this casual whistling in the background. It's so good. I probably watch this scene like once a month, just like to look at it and to marvel at how effectively it's set up and executed. I love it. I love it.
But so the reason I brought it up, like in context of when I brought it up, is like before that scene, like you're not nearly as the movie viewer, you're not nearly as suspicious of Arthur Lee Allen as you are after it. And I think is that accurate? I haven't seen this in longer.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So it serves a very interesting structural purpose, and like a huge amount is accomplished with this short scene, plot wise.
It's a turning point in the plot, because before that it's all about who did it, and after that it's more about how do we prove this guy did it.
Right.
Yeah, and which is a neat thing, because like we've said, we still don't know that it was him, like even in real life. So I think you phrased it well, Michael. It's how do we prove this guy did it, not how do we determine whether this guy did it.
Yeah. And I love that the movie even gets to a point near the end of it where I think Gyllenhaal's sitting down with Ruffalo and saying like, okay, not as a cop, like even if we don't have the evidence, as a person, not a cop, do you think he did it? And Ruffalo's response is perfect. But I am a cop. It like, for me, it doesn't matter if I can't prove it. And I love that idea. I love that conflict between the two of them. But Ruffalo's character kind of gets swept up in it. Like Jake Gyllenhaal, Robert Graysmith is so passionate and so into this that like one of the final scenes of the film is him kind of convincing Ruffalo that like, look, this is the guy. This is absolutely the guy. And it's so good. Every part of it's good. Like I love that the way the scene is shot in the diner when he takes the two salt shakers and puts them and it's like 50 yards door to door. And he's like, how could you possibly know that? And Graysmith is like, I've walked it. Like that's how obsessed with his case. He's going to the places, he's walking these distances, he's doing all these things. And it's so good.
Yeah, that scene kind of convinces the viewer as well.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like it helps make the ending more satisfying, than it could have been, because like there's not the resolution that you want, which is
Right.
that they catch him and he's caught. But just like seeing Jake Gyllenhaal can convince
Did you do that on purpose?
Ruffalo that it's this guy is you kind of feel a bit of contentment with that. And then when he goes into the hardware store and makes eye contact, you're like, yeah, it was him. It was definitely him.
Yeah,
Solve this together.
Especially since this case like effectively like ruined Ruffalo's life almost as much as it ruined Gyllenhaal's. Like it drives his partner away. His partner transfers. He
Honestly, like I didn't buy that as much. I don't know.
You didn't buy that Ruffalo's life was ruined? He got busted by Internal Affairs and knocked back out of murder police.
But his partner, though, I didn't quite buy his partner leaving, because his partner was kind of like the laid back, like almost the guy who was keeping Ruffalo on track and had the animal crackers for him and stuff, which was a cool touch.
Yeah, but I think that losing that is a symbol of Ruffalo like losing it, that he lost this rock of a partner he had.
Yeah, I guess it's more about Ruffalo than the partner.
Yeah, I think it is.
I didn't see like wearing on the partner at all, but I guess it's more of a device to show what's happening to Ruffalo.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. And then to complete our trifecta, we have Robert Downey Jr.'s Paul Avery, who is probably the least characterized of these three guys. Michael, I know you had some stuff about him that you didn't quite like.
Yeah, well, I liked him. I didn't buy. I mean, he's another character that he's like another one of the secondary characters that I didn't really buy how like distraught they were by this case, because it seemed like they were setting him up to be a little bit more of a character. They spent a lot of time on him at the beginning of the movie, and then he kind of trailed off, and he was doing like reckless things, like going to this whatever the lead was in some other city that freaked out Jake Gyllenhaal, that he would do that once he realized what was happening. But that didn't bother him at all. And he was all confident about the things that he'd uncovered. And then it just seemed like he kind of off screen, let his alcoholism take over. And then you get one more scene with him on the houseboat where he's like, go away. I'm fine.
See, that's where I don't agree that was off screen though. I think every scene that had Paul Avery in it showed him like either heading to the bar or in the bar or... But
it seemed like that was just kind of who he was. Like there wasn't any gravity to his drinking. It was more like, I'm the lighthearted guy who always goes to the bar for lunch with people and makes fun of you because you drink the wrong thing.
Yeah, but it was destroying him. Like every time jump, we saw him worse and worse and worse until he gets fired from his job at this newspaper, has to take a job at a shittier newspaper, and lives on a houseboat.
I didn't see that. I saw like the one time when he yelled at his boss, when he got fired. I didn't see that coming. Like you could see in Ruffalo and Gyllenhaal's acting, you could see their like gradual obsession and things about their lives being ruined. But I just didn't get that with Robert Downey Jr. I just always saw him in his normal like flippant, quippy Iron Man self.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. For what it's worth, like I remember scenes of Ruffalo, and I haven't seen this movie in a while. I think you guys watched it more recently in preparation for this. Like I don't remember hardly any scenes with Robert Downey Jr. I know he was in this movie, but like it didn't stick with me. That's just kind of my feeling. It almost felt out of place because it's like, why is Tony Stark in this movie? Like this was.
Right. I mean, you got to remember this was before Iron Man. This was
that's
Robert
true.
Downey Jr. at the very beginning of his upswing back into relevance, and he's playing a addict here, which I think is very fitting for Robert Downey Jr., who is a alcoholic and drug addict, recovering, of course. But I don't know.
He's playing the character he always plays, I guess, is just why I felt out of place.
I mean, yes and no, yeah, but he's playing them. I mean, he does have a very distinct style. You're absolutely right. But I don't know. I got his destruction. I think Fincher, like we said, was very in the details, and like his clothes looked worse every time. His hair looked more disheveled. His face looked more messed up. He just looked to me like he was getting worse and worse every time we saw him.
I kind of want to watch it again, just paying attention to his character, because don't even remember that being his arc.
He is a minor character. He's not the focus. I think the focus really lands on David Tashi, who's Mark Ruffalo's character, and Robert Graysmith. Those are the two real focal points of the film.
I think he's actually focused on a lot at the beginning. Like, I thought he was going to be a main character.
I think he serves as Gyllenhaal's kind of doorway into this thing. Like, it's because of Robert Downey Jr.'s like friendship of a sort with Graysmith that he really gets the information and starts heading down this rabbit hole.
Right. Yeah.
So that's his function in the story.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seemed like a waste. I just thought, I didn't feel like he had an arc. Like, David Fincher was so good at giving like Graysmith an arc, even though that's incredibly difficult to do because this movie doesn't have like the resolution, like I said, that you want it to. But I just didn't feel like that was true with Avery. Like, I feel like maybe he should have made a reappearance more than just looking at the television at the end of the movie in a bar. It felt like the movie kind of abandoned him.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he had an arc. I thought it was just not front and center. It's there. It's just not out in the open.
Well, there. Agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's still interesting. I mean, especially in this movie, like, I just disagree that this movie did. What was it you said? Like that doesn't have a story, was what the critics said. I mean, it has, like, in whatever classical definition of story you choose, it has a story, which is like having a protagonist who goes through a struggle and changes and learns something, and I don't know, I can't rattle off all the right terms here, but he totally does. And you know, even the beat of, like you guys already pointed out, where he convinces Mark Ruffalo's character, that's the catharsis you're looking for, because that's the representation in the movie of this character accomplishing what he's been trying to accomplish this whole time.
Right. And I'm often critical of movies for not having a strong enough storyline, but I'm not of this one, because you're right, it absolutely does have one. It's just not the conventional one that people are expecting.
It's not the sexy serial killer story. Like, even if you compare this to one of Fincher's own earlier movies, if you compare this to Seven was this like exciting, violent, like story that had a definitive end that was satisfying, although dark and depressing, but
pretty epic ending.
yeah. But like this, it's such like this feels as almost a response. Like you see Fincher make this movie very early in his career in Seven, and then comes back in Zodiac with this much less sexy, quote unquote, of a serial killer story, where there's only a few, like I said, there's only a few murders. It doesn't get solved. No one, like, they get their catharsis, but through a very roundabout way. It's not, I got to see this guy get caught. It's literally just, I have to believe it's him. I have to look him in the eyes and know it's him. And he gets that. Yeah. And so you're absolutely right. It's a story, but it's not, I think, what you think when you think of like a crime thriller.
Right. It seems like maybe this was David Fincher's kind of like so-called writer's project in a way, where he's like, I have this idea that's like not a conventional story, but I think I can make it work, and I think this will be a great exercise. Yeah. And he's how convinced other people to let him make it, even though, you know, I feel like it's kind of a hard sell if you describe like the ending. Like, I feel like the studio would be like, you need to like have him catch him at the end, though, right?
Yeah.
My big ending is he walks into a tool store and he looks the guy in the eyes and then leaves.
Yeah.
The end.
Right. So I definitely respect him for even attempting to make this movie, and more so for making it successfully.
Yeah. And how, like, we've talked about John Carroll Lynch in that one scene already. How good is he in that ending scene too? He doesn't say anything but, how can I help you? And he gives this look, and it's this like look of recognition, and like it's like he knows that Graysmith knows.
It's not overly incriminating, though. It's just like, you could definitely interpret it either way. If you didn't have the context, it wouldn't be weird at all.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Like, I mean, you could, like, at this point, I think Graysmith, it's public knowledge that he's writing the book because it's been in the newspaper. So it literally could just be, this guy has been harassed by the police because he's their number one suspect, and now here's this guy who he knows is writing a book about the thing has come into the story just to look at him. So it could just be like a look of annoyance that like, please leave me alone. But it also could be like, he knows that you know, and just gives this menacing look.
Yeah, right. That's the ambiguity. I was going to mention also like the fact that you can never really. So you see all the murders, sort of. You never really see. You never get a good enough look at the murderer, and you never really hear his voice quite well enough. Like you're like, that kind of sounds like him. It could be him. And it's so well done where it's not different enough that you're like, oh, it's a different actor, but it's not. He's not doing it. I literally don't even know if it is the same actor doing those lines, or if they just picked somebody with a similar voice.
I have the IMDb open. There are 3 different actors that play the Zodiac.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, so they got 3 different actors.
That's perfect.
I like. There's that was a great decision. But I also liked how they had like the handwriting expert who was like so sure that he couldn't be wrong. But like you definitely call that into question. Well, and it's a great way of communicating like a more modern kind of like because apparently handwriting has been like almost completely debunked as a reliable
it's
thing at all.
It's pseudoscience. It's not even and that's one of the things that I think is cool about watching this movie. I think it was timely about it in 2007, and I think makes it a little bit more timely now. Is like we're watching this like investigation on the eve of this technology revolution, and like you're seeing the frustrations caused by lack of communication and lack of technology. Like that whole scene where like, well, we have to mail it to you. We don't have a fax, and we don't have a fax either. The one. I think the San Francisco PD isn't even aware that Vallejo is talking to another police department who has a murder there. And it's like you're seeing like the clues like slip out of their hands as there's just this lack of communication. And I think it's really reflective on like how far we've come in our investigation capacity that I wonder if this happened now, if someone would have been caught, if they would have found the evidence that actually proved it was Arthur Lee Allen or not.
I really enjoyed when Mark Ruffalo like went to a police box and like unlocked a police box and like got the telephone out of it to his call. I was like, that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah,
that's how it worked.
And that's how far we've come since that. I mean, it's just like investigation and the stuff has changed so dramatically since then.
But also the scary thing is like a lot of our methods of gathering evidence and so forth haven't, and they're still just as full of holes as they always. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that's why the movie is timeless. I think the movie works as this snapshot of this time, but is reflective of the frustration of unsolved crime that will always exist no matter how good our technology gets. Yeah. It's a good way to show stuff like that. Like you can tell people how garbage evidence, different ways of collecting evidence are, but when you have it in a movie like this, where you have this like conceited old man who's like, no, there's absolutely no way anyone could write in a way other than what they formed when they were born. You're like, wait, is there?
It's like there's no way that someone intentionally trying to mask their identity would write differently when writing a note to a newspaper. No, that couldn't happen.
You kind of see through that, and you can tell Jake Gyllenhaal when he's like interviewing him is kind of like, "Are you sure?"
Yeah,
like word, but like okay.
But the thing, and this gets to the last thing I want to talk about though, is the paranoia that this movie puts on you is so great. And Michael, you had mentioned the basement scene, and I think that's a really wonderful scene because it's one of the most intense. It's the most intense scene in the movie. It's terrifying. But it's so like out of left field, and like this wasn't even someone that we were really sure was a suspect, but like Gyllenhaal is in this place of paranoia, and like that one little clue towards this guy like makes it like you 100% convinced that this is the guy, and he's in the basement with him right now, and he's got to get the hell out of there, and you're right there with him. You're like, this is the guy. This is definitely the guy. But
well, you get to see his like. Because when he's supposed to meet him in a public place, and then the guy's like, "Oh, why don't you just come back to my place?" And Jake Gyllenhaal's just like so excited. He's like, yeah, okay, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, don't do it. But then you like see him gradually becoming terrified as like more things are revealed in this guy's house.
Yeah.
And
He's just, let me look for that poster. Come down into the basement with me.
Basement, and then him just like running out, and then the door being locked, and everything about that was really, it was incredibly tense. And like there are more action filled movies that are meant to be really tense that I don't find tense, but the scene like actually kind of had me on the edge of my seat.
Absolutely. And like the thing that most affected me is when he's saying like he hears something upstairs and is like, who else is in the house?
Yeah.
And the guy's just like being weird and cagey and not answering his question. And like you're like the way Fincher uses the sound effects in that, where you're hearing things upstairs that could be footsteps, could just be pipes, could be 1,000 different things, but you're right there. You're like, someone else in this house. He's going to turn around. It's going to be someone there. Like something's going to happen.
The guy did such a good job of being creepy in a non-obvious way, just by guys like, so didn't this other guy write all of these posters? And he's like, no, I wrote all the posters.
Yeah. And of course, this is based off of something that Gyllenhaal was just arguing not too long before that wasn't exactly the best way to determine something. So like, but he's at this point now where he's so like desperate to find out who it is that he's going to jump on anything he does. So in that moment, he fully decides that this guy is the Zodiac.
Well, it's like when he goes to the prison and he's talking to the girl who used to know Darlene, the first girl who was stabbed. And she's like, it's a short name. And he's like, Rick, it's Rick, right? And she's like, no, it's definitely not Rick. And he's like, no, it's Rick, right? And he's like really insistent that it's this person that he's decided is it.
Yeah, he's so desperate. Yeah.
And then she finally says Lee, and he's like, oh, that's another name I remember.
Yeah,
so
there we go. Yeah. So now I know it's him for sure. Yeah.
Now it's him. It's definitely him.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So that's Zodiac. Did either of you have anything more you wanted to say about it? I think we've covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
I adore this movie so much. I loved talking about it almost as much as I liked watching it. And the crazy thing is, this is almost a 3-hour movie. I mean, this was longer than Blade Runner 2049. I did not notice at all.
Oh, I didn't notice because Blade Runner, that was excruciating.
Okay, let's not get off track.
All right. No, I haven't seen. Like I said, it makes me want to watch Zodiac again right now. Well,
you're lucky because it's on Netflix right now. Speaking of Netflix, let's move on to our What We've Been Watching section. And Michael, why don't you go first?
Well, I've been watching the very topical Mindhunter by David Fincher.
Wow. What's that about?
What a weird coincidence.
It's about this FBI guy. And so the great thing is it's not about what it seemed like it was going to be about. Okay, so I'm going to spoil the very first scene because it's the very first scene. It doesn't matter. But it seems like it's going to be a terrible police procedural because you've got this like FBI hostage negotiator and he shows up at the scene and there's like this crazy guy with a hostage and he's all walking around like he knows exactly what to do and like he's a badass and like the hero in SVU, and the only reason that he ever fails is because the system won't let him do his job as a instinctual police officer guy. But then it fails, the whole thing that he's on. And the story that isn't about his job as a hostage negotiator at all. It's about his journey, like trying to figure out how like the FBI should be dealing with criminals, because previously they'd always seen them as like people who had some logical motive or were just born crazy. But he's trying to understand how they get to how they are. And he goes on all these little journeys just in the first episode. By like meeting a college student or by like talking to this, older, more experienced FBI guy when he's going around to like police stations in small towns and stuff. And it's a good story. It's more about the journey than about any particular crime or anything.
Yeah. And this is I guess we should say you've only seen the first 2 episodes. I've only seen the first episode. So we are just kind of scratching the surface of this thing. But this is basically like Zodiac, based on a true story about the FBI's kind of switch to profiling of these serial killers. I think actually the Bill Tench character, the partner that he travels around with, is based on the guy who first coined the term serial killer. So this is kind of roughly based on true story, but in classic Fincher sense, they get creative with it where they need to for an interesting story. Yeah, like I said, I've only seen the first episode. I really, really am into this a lot. It has I think Fincher directed 4 of the 10 episodes, including the first one, and it shows that opening scene that you're talking about, Michael. I know, like why you were worried that it was going to turn into something, but knowing what I knew about the show going into it, the detail and the direction of that opening scene, I think, is just fantastic because we have this hostage negotiation. We have our main character, Holden Ford, played by Jonathan Groff, who is trying to talk down this crazy guy. And the way it's set up, the way it's lit, the way it's shot, the characters are having a conversation, but they're like 50 yards apart. And they're both kind of wreathed in darkness. You can't really see anything. And we never do a close-up of the crazy guy. We're always at a medium or a long shot. So it's like demonstrating the fact that we don't understand these people. We can't see these people. We can't know these people. And we are not equipped to handle them or deal with them at all. And that is told to you like entirely visually. And I just loved it. I loved it so much.
Yeah, you could definitely tell it seemed like a movie instead of a show.
Yeah,
and I noticed that right away. I'm glad it didn't turn out like I thought it might turn out based on because it's almost the point is that like he's pretty confident in his FBI training and everything, and that everything is going to go as planned, but it doesn't, and that shakes him up. And the great thing I like about it is that he's not a cool badass at all. Like he's put in a pretty bad place initially, and that no one kind of believes in him, and they think he's kind of like naive and stupid, and they kind of patronize him. But he's really likable in the sense that, well, I mean, one, he's like a Boy Scout, like Jake Gyllenhaal's character, so you kind of like him for that reason automatically. But he's also just like you really believe in his little quest. Like he's very inquisitive and like he wants to help people, and he rubs off on other people. And anyway, I'm interested to see where it goes. They're great characters. The thing that has to be good about a show for me to get interested in it is it has to have like good characters who are believable and have something that they want to accomplish and that you want them to accomplish. And I think the story is going to go somewhere interesting.
I agree too. I really love this character. I love his exploration into the counterculture. I love how his relationship with the college student that he meets and starts dating is kind of a reflection of how he, while the Boy Scout, while the straight-laced guy, is fundamentally different from everyone in the FBI. And he's interested in these other things, and he's interested in these things that the FBI wouldn't consider acceptable. And it's like that relationship is just a great reflection of that.
But that's actually another point in the story where I thought it could go wrong. Like I thought it was going to be all about, at that point, like this girl that he meets like changes him, and like she has all of the wisdom, but really like what he does throughout the whole episode is he's very willing to like try to understand everyone else's point of view.
Yeah.
Because it's not like he was subverted to the counterculture or converted to the counterculture or whatever, but he's like, oh, I want to understand this. But then he's also like, oh, there's the senior FBI guy who is offering me this other opportunity to go talk to policemen, and I really want to do that too. So they make it no one person has all the answers, but he's gradually collecting viewpoints.
Yeah. Well, and that's like my favorite line from the thing is kind of, I think that like the statement of the show, which is like when right after the failed hostage negotiation where he's talking to a supervisor and he said, hey, you did everything by the book. And that his response to that is, well, that kind of makes you wonder about the book then. And I think that's just like a perfect encapsulation of what the show is that like what we are doing is not sufficient. And that's kind of how the first episode ends, where him just declaring like, we are not equipped to handle this kind of thing. We don't understand enough about it, and we have to understand about it to be able to help these people. And I think that's a great like setting off point for the rest of the show. I can't wait to watch more episodes.
Another theme that I think it has that is pretty intriguing, and I don't know if this probably isn't a true statement, but there's sort of this impression that like at around this time in history, criminals maybe previously were logical, but like something about the complexity of society at around this point in history starts making people kind of become unhinged for more complicated reasons.
Yeah, and law enforcement was not keeping up with it.
Law enforcement wasn't keeping up, and you kind of get the impression that like there's something that he's going to uncover about society, like that makes him like understand the world more. That there's no way that show can actually deliver like an insight that deep into society, but you kind of feel like he might be going there, and you want him to realize something.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, Matt, do you want to go watch Mindhunter?
Yeah, I do.
All right, so let's move into what you've been watching. What's that, Matt?
Ragu 1.
What's that? I don't know what that is.
It's I may be mispronouncing it.
Is that one of them Star Wars movies?
It was the most recent Star Wars film as of this recording date.
So you have finally, almost a year after its release, you have finally seen Rogue One.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, let me just characterize to everyone that like I have been a huge Star Wars fan my whole life, and I love Star Wars and have probably been dressed up as a Star Wars character for several different Halloweens. And I just like wasn't excited about this movie based on how it was marketed. And then I watched it and didn't really have like, I knew Scott was waiting for me to watch it. So, and then like I watched it and I didn't even like tell him for 2 days, because I was just like, I don't really have anything to say about this. It was just kind of, it just does most everything wrong in terms of you don't care about the characters, and then it spends the last 45 minutes of the movie killing all the characters, spoiler alert, that you don't care about. And I think one of you said earlier, like the only character you care about is the villain, actually.
Yeah.
And it had a lot like I didn't care about anything really. Like I thought, I was like, usually I get excited about just the idea, just the visual spectacle of seeing a space battle, because that kid-like part of me is still alive and I'm capable of just enjoying a cool visual space battle. But I felt like they didn't even really do that very well at all. They didn't make me feel anything with that. I think probably the only time I felt something was when they show the ship escape from the docking bay at the very end. And that was literally just because it was playing on my nostalgia, and I fully recognized it as manipulation at that point in time.
Just all of the Star Wars movie rely on.
Yeah.
Like the whole ending of The Force Awakens was just relying on your love of the old Star Wars movies.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I could go through the whole movie and just whine about things I didn't like, but I don't even have the energy to, because it was just so disappointing.
Yeah. I completely agree with you, and I really thought when I saw the positive reviews of this thing and then went to see it myself, I was taking crazy pills because I did not understand why everyone seemed to love this movie so much. I thought it was bad. I really did. I'd not like The Force Awakens. I was just like, it's not good, but it's not like terrible. It's fine. I thought this was just a bad movie, and I thought you could tell that the movie was chopped up and changed dramatically from what was originally shot. And it just kind of, it's a jumbled mess. None of the characters are consistent. I don't understand why most of the characters are doing what they're doing. And they expect you to care about them and love them when you just haven't been given the opportunity to ever.
Yeah, there's a couple at least where I was like, I don't think I walked out of the room, but did I miss a scene? Because like you're clearly supposed to feel a certain way about Cassian. And I'm just like, I'm not on the ride with you, movie. Why do you think you've communicated to me what his pathos is? Or at least like, I'm like, okay, well, at some point you're going to communicate to me the information, the dark secret, whatever it is that I need to know to understand this character and move him beyond just like brooding actor, man. But they never do.
Nope. He was a mess of a character. He was such a mess. I didn't know what they were doing with him.
even whatever the main character's name was, like
Jin?
Jin. You never really understood what she was doing. Like all of a sudden, she went from person who didn't want to bother with the Republic's business to like their most brave advocate.
Yeah.
For no
Yeah.
Because the movie needed her to give that speech. Because Disney was said, no, she needs to be more inspiring.
You rebel.
Right. I like the droid character. The droid was good.
He was the only one with an arc, right?
Yes, he was. Yeah.
He started off not liking what I already forgot her name, and then Jen, and then he ended up liking her, and he was the only character that changed.
Yeah, and I cared about his dramatic sacrifice. Actually, he was the only one who got a proper dramatic like sacrifice. The rest of them just like died.
Yeah,
like they're fighting. So like several of the ones outside, like they're fighting and they accomplish a thing, and then they just die. And then the other guys that get blown up by the Death Star. But the robot actually died fending off the stormtroopers, which mattered.
Yeah. And he's played by Alan Tudyk. Is that how you say his last name?
The fly guy.
Yeah. He was great. He was my favorite character in the movie. The only one I was sad about dying. And he was a robot. So that's all you need to know about the movie. I still don't understand why people like this movie. I really don't.
Sassy droid characters, though. It's just kind of like there always has to be one sassy droid character and one cute droid character. That's what we do in Star Wars. We can't break that formula.
No, we're terrified. We're terrified of breaking the Star Wars formula. We can't leave the stories we already know. We have to circle around those. We have to do the same beats. We need... The main ones can have lightsabers. We didn't have any lightsabers. Well, we still did. We still worked a lightsaber fight. Well, not a fight, but a lightsaber massacre. Yeah. I don't know.
I thought that it was visually very disappointing, just in general. Like a lot of times I was like, well, this is just an obviously CGI scene, which I thought we were well past at this point in time.
What do you think of Grand Moff Tarkin?
I thought
his CG. I hated it.
I mean, it was noticeably CG. Like it took me out of the scene, but I was also able to be like, okay, I this doesn't like if that were the only thing wrong with the movie, it wouldn't ruin the movie for me. But it was not. It was not. The technology is not at a point where you can rely on that yet.
The thing that ruined it more than just him being CG was that they bothered to put him in at all, because he wasn't important to the story. He was just another one of the things from the original movie you were supposed to be like, oh, I remember him.
Yeah, right. It could have just been Grand Moff Bob, and he would have been like, yeah.
They could have just not showed him. Like there was already a main Imperial bad guy.
Yeah. Right. They didn't. Yeah.
All right, that's Rogue One.
Yeah.
It's available for rental or purchase now, anywhere you can get movies. But don't do it because it's not good.
No, it's a trap. It's a trap.
Oh, right. The movie I want to talk about is a documentary called Spielberg, and it is about Steven Spielberg. This is an HBO documentary that premiered, I think, on the 6th or the 7th. It's pretty good. It misses some Spielberg movies that I surprised it did. It didn't talk about AI like at all, which is a pretty big moment in Spielberg's career because it's like him picking up a Kubrick mantle and carrying Kubrick's vision to fruition, which I think is a pretty big deal for Steven Spielberg. But it spends a lot of time on like the film nerd pack of the early 70s where he was hanging out with George Lucas and Scorsese and others I just blanked on, but there was like every film actor or every film director from that time all kind of hung out with each other and became huge people in the film world. So it's interesting to look into it. It's kind of like a very shallow dive into Spielberg. Like it just kind of moves through his career and talks about his different movies. And I think it's a cinephile will enjoy it, but it's nothing like super new. I didn't learn a lot of super new stuff about Steven Spielberg through this documentary, but it's cool. He's one of my favorite directors. So if you like Spielberg, check it out.
Like how long? Go ahead, Michael. I was just gonna say how long was the documentary, because that matters if you didn't learn much. I
am looking it up. I don't remember.
Did it feel incredibly long?
It is 2.5 hours long. It's pretty long. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't watch it all in one setting. I watched half of it and then watched some of it later. But it's got a lot of interviews with Spielberg himself, and I enjoy that. It's always fun to hear him talk about his childhood. But like, it's not like a revelation that that Close Encounters is a reflection of his family life and his feelings about his father. Like, that's not new news. Like, that's like something that's been discussed and talked about 100 times. So like, I don't know, maybe for someone like, if you like say, oh, like I like Jurassic Park, let's learn about Steven Spielberg, you might come into this documentary and learn a ton of stuff. But for the people this movie seems aimed at, I think most of the stuff is not new.
I didn't know that about Close Encounters, but yeah, I don't know. I might find that interesting.
Yeah, it's a lot of talking heads. Francis Ford Coppola's in there to talk about Spielberg. Brian De Palma, George Lucas, they're all there. Tom Hanks, of course. So, yeah, I mean, you might like it. I don't know. I didn't dislike it. I just was hoping for more. I was hoping for a lot of new insights that I didn't get.
Well, I will probably not check that out because HBO. I have to watch this Zodiac show instead.
It's on HBO if you want to check it out.
Okay.
All right. So that's all we got this week, guys. That was a lot of fun. I like talking about old movies. You know, we haven't done a Deconstructing Fincher, but we've done 2 Fincher movies in their own episodes now. One of our first episodes was Fight Club, and now we've done Zodiac. So maybe our Deconstructing Fincher will just be like a multi-year project where we spend an entire episode talking about a different Fincher movie. I would love that. So
yeah, we'll just rename this Deconstructing Fincher Part 2.
There we go.
It realize like how many of his movies were his, but they're all so great.
Yeah. I basically have loved everything. I don't know if I've ever seen The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I think that's my only hole in my Fincher viewing.
That Gone Girl was great. That was pretty recent.
Yeah, loved Gone Girl.
Like he doesn't really have like an era. Like he's just consistently made good movies ever since his first few.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So that's all we got for you guys this week. Next week, I don't know. We might be doing a Rick and Morty podcast, Matt, because you watched that.
Yeah.
We might not be doing that. I don't think there's any big movies coming out unless you guys really want to go see Geostorm. Anyone want to go see Geostorm?
No. God.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it out.
I bet James Gentry's going to go see Geostorm. Maybe I'll pull him in to talk about that. Either way, we will have a new episode for you guys next week. We'll have more news, some movie talk, and maybe something else. Michael, thank you for coming on. Thank you for watching this movie. Matt, thank you for jumping into. Go watch Mindhunter and Zodiac. Go do it.
All right.
And you can find this, all the other podcasts we do and more at dailyplanetfilms.com. You can follow us on Twitter at dailyplanetfilms. It's DALY. And you can reach out to us at dailyplanetfilms@gmail.com if you have any comments, questions, concerns, criticism. I think we could take criticism. And if you like what we do, if you like these podcasts, if you like all the other podcasts we do, you can support us by going over to patreon.com/dailyplanetfilms and donating $1 a month or whatever else you can afford to make sure we keep doing this and keep making more things. Matt, we're rounding the corner towards that next goal to do the film court.
Yeah, I know you're excited about that.
I am. This is something that I've been talking to each of you about for a long time. I think it was like a year ago, Michael, I mentioned that to you.
Yeah, I'm very excited about Film Court. Yeah, I want to argue how bad movies are.
So I think our plan with that, guys, is I think we're going to do a pilot episode here to kind of show the listeners what it's going to be like. So look for that within the next few weeks or months or something, just a pilot episode to show what my plan is. And hopefully that encourages people to say, yeah, I definitely want more of that. Here's $1. Because this is going to be, I think, the most extensively produced podcast we've done. Yeah, or $2.
$3.
Well, let's not get greedy here, Michael.
However much money.
All the money. Yeah. But I think it's going to be a really time intensive, a really like production intensive. I want to do a lot of things with sound and with editing and stuff in this podcast that we've never really done. They've always just been like us sitting down to talk. So I have some ideas and I think it's going to be fun. So we will work on putting that out. But you can check that out at patreon.com/dailyplanetfilms. All right. Michael,
that's
Matt,
all.
That We'll see you next week.
You
Bye-bye.
asked me to do the show.
You did great. You did great. Thank you.